had their children in Eden, was there other people on earth at this time? In Genesis, the 5th chapter and the 16th verse, Cain dwelt in the land of Nod and knew his wife. Now, that's a wonderful question. Now, we are taught in the Bible, and many times sometimes we have carelessly, I used to put on a little slip of paper and say, answer any Bible question. And someone said, well, who was Cain's wife? Oh, I'd a little joke with it or something. I'd say, oh, that was his mother-in-law's daughter, something like that, or she was Miss Cain. But that don't answer the question. Cain had a wife because the Bible said he did. And if Cain had a wife, he had to get her somewhere. And this would line right into it here. Was there other people on the earth when Adam and Eve had their children in the Garden of Eden? Now, if you notice, in the Bible, it's very seldom ever recorded about a woman being born. It's always the man-child is the one that they record in the Bible, not the woman. Seldom is it ever mentioned about the birth of a girl baby in the Bible. Or as frankly, I don't know as I can recall one right straight off now in mind, where it ever recorded a birth of a baby. It said they begot sons and daughters. Now, the Bible only gives record of 3 children being born to Adam and Eve. And that was Cain, Abel, and Seth. Now, if all 3 of those being man, if there wasn't any females born, and then when the only female, Eve, died, the human race would have ceased to exist right then, because there had been no way for them to have the human race to have furthered, because there would have been no females left. Eve would have been the only one, but you see, they don't record the birth of girl babies in the Bible, so therefore they had to have girls as same as boys. Now, the old writer, one of the most ancient writers we got, Josephus, claims they had 70 children at Adam and Eve. One of the oldest writers. 70 children, and they were both sons and daughters. Now, if Cain went to the land of Nod, now, if you notice, the writer was very, very brilliant writing here. Did you notice how I quoted it? In Eden, when they had their children in Eden, now not in the Garden of Eden. The writer knew, who wrote the note here, said, and Adam and Eve had their children in Eden, not in the Garden of Eden, because they'd been driven out of the Garden of Eden, but they were still in Eden, and the Garden of Eden laid east in Eden. But Eden was like a county or a state. And then Nod was another state or county next to it. Now, the only person that Cain could have had or married would have had to be his own sister. He had to, because there's only one male and female that they could have come from, see? And he had to marry his own sister. Now, that was legal in those days. Isaac married his own first blood cousin, Rebekah, ordained of God. Sarah was Abraham's sister, his blood sister. Not by his mother, by his father. See? A blood sister that Abraham married. A different mother, but same father. So you see, to marry in relation then, before the stream of blood was weakened in the human race, it was legal and all right. Now, it isn't. If you'd marry your sister today and have children, they'd probably be, they'd just be deformed and everything, even down to a first and second cousins should never be married. See, because the bloodstream becoming low and running low. But the only thing then that Cain could have done would have been marry his own sister. And that's where the children was, that he got his wife, went to the land of Nod, and knew her, and from there come the children. See, and if you notice, out of the line of Cain come the smart man. Out of the line of Seth come the religious man. I mean the vine of righteousness. Right there, those two brought forth the very line that we're living in today. If you'll notice today now, just in finishing this question, that lineage of Cain still exists. And the lineage of Seth still exists. They both come down just the same. Cain's children is here in Jeffersonville tonight. And Seth's children is here in Jeffersonville tonight. as the bloodstream weakens and goes out, but that lineage still hangs on. Now watch. Cain's children were always, and before the antediluvian destruction, they were the smart people, the scientists, the educators, and very religious, but was a condemned bunch. See? Now watch. They were just like their father Cain. Cain, he was a religious man. He built a beautiful altar, made a beautiful church, and tried to make it look prettier than that little mission that Seth had down there. Did you know that? He decorated the altar with flowers and fixed it beautiful and made it pretty and made a great big swell church because he thought that he could find favor with God by doing so. And Abel went over and got a little lamb and started pulling it over to the altar and laid it on a rock and killed it. And now, if God being just, if all he required was worship, Cain worshiped God with just as much sincerity as Abel did. Both of them were sincere. Both of them was trying to find grace with God. They were neither one of them infidels. They were both absolutely believers in Jehovah. Now that gives us something to think of. Some here tonight, I've never seen people, I've never seen you before. But you must realize this and keep this in your mind. See? No matter how religious you are, that don't have one thing to do with it. You might live in church, you might be ever so sincere, and you're still lost. See? And you say, our pastors are the smartest. They come through the seminaries to get the best education. They're theologians. They know all the theologies and so forth, and they're smart, trained, the elected best that we know of, and they could still be lost. Amen. See? Now, Cain, on his line, they were everyone very religious, a very famous people, and they were scientists and doctors and builders and workers and smart men. But all that lineage was rejected from Cain all the way down. And on Abel's side, they wasn't builders or educators or smart men. They were more or less humble sort of sheep raisers and peasants that just walked by the Spirit. Amen. Now, the Bible says there's no condemnation to them that's in Christ Jesus that walk not after the flesh, but after the Spirit. The spiritual man has a spiritual soul that can never die, and the carnal man has a religious atmosphere around him and wants to worship and so forth, but is carnal. Amen. Not an unbeliever, but a carnal believer. And the kind was rejected. Now, from there, Cain went and married his wife in the land of Nod. Now, it doesn't say who Seth married or who others married. And the very beautiful thing of that is to know that Cain marrying, we have the answer to it because he had to marry his sister, or there was more and more women on the earth. But this had to come from Eve. She was the mother of all living. That's all the people that was living. She was the mother of it. That's the reason the word Eve means the mother of the living. So she came and brought this child, and Cain married his own sister would be the only way that I could see out of it. So there was people living in that day, truly, see. And when Adam and Eve had their children in Eden. Now watch. Well, that's the question. When they had their children in Eden, was there other people on earth at this time? No. Then in Genesis 5:16, you see, Cain dwelt in the land of Nod and knew his wife. Sure. See, that's Genesis 1 where he created man in his own image, which was in the theophany. And in Genesis 2, he made man out of the dust of the earth, which is the human man that we have now. And then in 3 was the fall and was kicked from the Garden of Eden. And then the children begot children. And Cain took his wife and lived with her in the land of Nod outside because God had separated him from the fellowship with his own brother because of the death of Abel. And that's who he had, his own sister. And married her. Is the only way that I myself can see how that he married. Now it's been said, and I hope that my colored friends that's in here will excuse this remark, because it's absolutely not right. The first time I ever met anyone in my life, after I'd been converted, I met Brother George D'Arc and them down there, and I was walked in. The Lord led me to a little place and was discussing where the colored man came from. And they were trying to say that the colored man, that Cain, married an animal, like an ape, and through there come forth the colored race. Now that's wrong. Absolutely that's wrong. And don't never stand for that. Because there was no color or white or any other different. There's just one race of people until the flood. That after the flood and Tower of Babel, when they begin to scatter out, that's when they're taking their colors and so forth. They're all come from the same tree. That's exactly right. Adam and Eve was the father and mother, earthly, of every living creature of human beings that's ever been on the earth. That's right. Black, white, pale, brown, yellow, whatever color you might be. That's absolutely the place that you live in, and the way that just like I think I might express this while I'm on it, the people here now in these segregations and laws and things that are passing, I think it's ridiculous.
Amen.
I really do.
Amen.
Listen, just let those people alone. They know what they want. God made a man a colored man, and He's happy about it.
Amen.
Absolutely. If God made me a colored man, I'd be happy about it. If He made me a brown man, I'd be happy. If He made me a white man, I'm happy. If He made me a yellow man, I'd be happy.
Amen.
God made us in our colors, and He made us the way He wanted us, and we're all His children.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Amen.
And they oughtn't to fuss and carry on like that.
Amen.
That's wrong to do that. They shouldn't do it. God made us the way we wanted. The colored man, he don't want to get out there and break up his generation or his color, mix it in with the other white and everything like that. I don't blame him.
Amen.
I don't. The colored man has things that the white man don't even possess.
Amen.
Absolutely. It's exactly right. God never intended him to be that way. But look, the colored man he's got a disposition about him that the white man never does have.
Amen.
He's got a happy-go-lucky, a trust God, just let the rest of it go. Whether he's got it or whether he hasn't, he's happy anyhow.
Amen.
I'd like to have a whole lot of that tonight.
Amen.
I sure would. Well, he's got it, and that's his possession. He don't want to mix it up with some other race and break it out either.
Amen.
Exactly right. I think the lady down there at Shreveport made one of the best comments I ever heard in my life. She made a comment, and they put it in the paper. She walked up, she said, the way these things are going in here in this segregation, I don't want my children going to school, white school. Said they won't get the attention they'd have if they had a colored teacher. That woman's a smart woman. She knows what she was talking about. They get a better education. That's exactly right. So I think that people do wrong by doing that. And then they say Cain and Abel and so forth like that. No, sir. The color had nothing to do with it. It's the spirit inside of there that has something to do with it.
Amen.
That's exactly right. So Cain knew his wife, and that was his sister. And he took her to the land of Nod, and there come forth the great tribes of the earth, the religionists and worshippers. And just think today, friend, just stop and think this for a moment, that there are tens of thousands times tens of thousands and thousands of thousands of absolutely church-going people, just as sincere and consecrated that church may be, that's just as far lost as Cain was.
Amen.
See?
Amen.
It's God who chooses. It's God who elects. See? God who gives mercy. The clay can't stay to the potter. It's the potter over the clay.
Amen.
That's right.